Okay, morning, folks. Um, Welcome to the briefing on Saturday the 12th. Grid isn't quite as big as I thought it was going to be, but I'm sure that'll extend as the morning goes on and once we start launching. It's going to be another big grid day and a reasonable day in prospect. This is the overnight chart, and you can see this sort of trailing front that's been crawling across us for the best part of 24 hours. And it's slowly clearing over the channel at the moment. Can't load the midday chart because it for some reason crashes. But you can see the isobars are well spaced, and looking at other charts, slackening off as the day goes on. So like northwesterly flow, ridge of high pressure building in here. It's quite dry air in the sort of lower to mid levels. So expecting that things will dry out and the cumulus will obviously form and reduce as the day goes on. The TAFs, not really telling us much, to be honest. It's a bit of an old one from Farnborough. It just says 338 knots all day, 10k vis, a few at 2,000 feet. Well, I think we're going to see that fairly shortly. And I think the cloud base will go up fairly readily, but cloud amounts reduce as the day goes on because it's very dry air mass. Gatwick and Heathrow don't tell us anything extra on top of that. Upper winds, light northwesterly flow, 10 knots, I think, at most in the centre of the country at flying heights. So not strong, and it looks like, looking at other sort of charts, it may well drop as the day goes on. SatPic shows some cloud in here, and there's sort of upper cloud about as well, but that will thin out as the day goes on. As I say, it's drying air mass. There's the front that is still lurking over the channel, very, very slow moving, but quite clear. Temperatures are building quite nicely, and I think hopefully today peaking, I'm working on 24. Might be a bit more than that, up and around sort of Cambridgeshire and that area there. But this seems to be the best area for temperature up to the Midlands and across into East Anglia today. Funny enough, it got to 24 degrees yesterday, according to the Lasham weather station, but it didn't actually feel like that out at the launch point. But it will feel nice and warm today. Dew points, I think they're going to come down to about 9s, there or thereabouts around here. So pretty big temperature split over the day. Playing those sort of numbers into the predicted descents, these lines, actually, let's just go back to 12 o'clock. These lines are close enough together. Yeah, definitely going to see some clouds. Forecasts maybe a day ago or 2 days ago showed them a little bit further apart, it looking blue really, but actually chance of cumulus more so today. This is sort of 1 o'clock, and I think you're looking at probably 3,500 foot cloud base by 1 o'clock, and slowly going up in the afternoon. I would have thought somewhere around 4 to 4.5 above sea level. A bit odd sort of lines here, and I can understand that. I've had a look at the Camborne ascent, and it goes a bit sort of wobbly on the dew point line, the overnight one. So it's not a perfect sort of ascent picture, but looks pretty good. And then further north looks very, very similar, actually slightly higher into Cambridgeshire, but very similar sort of shape and picture really. And this is the one further north. Probably plugging in those numbers about 4.8, so slightly better. Oxford, Bicester area. Top meteo, cloud amounts That's probably what we're going to have fairly shortly. This is at 11 o'clock, but certainly cumulus looking reasonable by 10, very soarable by 11, and then starting to reduce in the cumulus amounts beyond 1-2 o'clock. So 1-2/8 at best, I think, as the air dries out. But it should be still reasonable cumulus, visible over most of the sort of Midlands area and East Anglia. And again, I don't see why it shouldn't be a long day. It should still be soarable at 7 o'clock, I would have thought. Maybe even beyond that. Thermal tops, well, it's certainly going to be soarable by 10 o'clock, not very high. Definitely by 11 at probably 3,000 feet. And then by early afternoon, 1,400 meters here, so 4,000 feet-ish above here. Better, they're sort of saying 1,500 meters into East Anglia and the Midlands here. So that's your area, folks. Quite windy to the northern half of England. And looking at the sat pic first thing this morning, certainly over Yorkshire and then Scotland, there was evidence of waves, so it's reasonably windy in that area. Perhaps not advisable to go a long way north, but certainly should be able to squeeze in a fairly big task over the centre of the country. And Tom Meteo's suggested task area is there. So that should be fairly reasonable, folks. I think everybody will be happy if that works out. Okay, airspace wise, one or two things going on. Our part of the country around here, quite quiet. Nobody's going to be over Slough. That's to do with Windsor Castle, restricted airspace. What we got here is Royal flights. I'm assuming one is going out of Kemble and then one is coming back into Bryce, but there's a Royal flight airspace out of Kemble at 13:35 to 14:35. It turns into Class D airspace round the airfield, and then an airway at 3,500 feet up to operating for that period. And then in the evening, 18:10 to 18:55, Bryce's airspace, the 3,500 foot piece of Bryce airspace, gets raised to 5, and then they get an airway coming in from the northwest, which is this one here. And again, that goes down to 3,500 feet. So want to avoid at those times, folks. In between that will easily. And that pretty much is it in the south and up to the North Midlands, really. It's very, very quiet in this area. Lots of hang gliding and paragliding notified, but nothing much else, really. I can't imagine anybody's going to be heading to the West Country, but again, you're not going much past Dartmoor and you're into restricted airspace thanks to the G7. One other notification, Chiltern Park are active parachuting from now all day, folks, right till late evening. They'll be active today and tomorrow. So normal rules for parachute zones: if you can't establish what's actually happening within the drop zone, don't go in. If you think you're going to go in there, speak to them and establish what's going on. And they're quite friendly at Chiltern Park, and Booker Gliding Club are operating out of there at the moment. And that's about it. Airfield wise, we're on 27. The grid's already set up. We'll be out on the runway fairly shortly. with the normal club flying operation. So hopefully see you out there.